Hello, my name is Kara Walski, and I would like to take you on a tour of a Pathfinder I created for our LMIS 680 using informational sources class. My Pathfinder is meant for my 6th grade ELA students. It's meant to help them work through the researching process and also to help them write a research paper on the country of Sudan. I created my Pathfinder in Canvas because it's the learning management system that my school uses and that my students are most familiar with. I do plan on using this Pathfinder next year with my 6th grade students, and so I wanted to use something that I know that they would be able to work through. I also used Canva to create a lot of the material for my Pathfinder. Again, it's another platform that my students are familiar with and that I find very user-friendly, and I'm able to create slides and presentations that are engaging for my students. I didn't collaborate with anybody for this Pathfinder, but I do plan on sharing it with the other two 6th grade ELA teachers so that next year we can use this as we teach the researching process and as we guide them through writing a research paper. So if we click on modules, which is where students will start, we'll start our tour of the Pathfinder. Each module has a title. As you can see, this one is the Pathfinder Sudan research paper. Start here. When students click, they'll get a little introduction as to what standard we're covering, the writing standard 9, and a little bit about the Pathfinder. That they're going to be researching the country of Sudan. They need to follow the module in order, starting at the top, working their way down. That they'll be graded and they'll be able to see their grading rubric and to make sure that they have all the requirements. I also have my contact information there for them if they have any questions while they're working through the Pathfinder. From there, I want to give them a little introduction about the book that we're going to be reading in class, A Long Walk to Water by Linda Sue Park. The reason we do our research paper on the country of Sudan is because Sudan is the setting of the story, and it's a big part of the conflict in the story. Everything from the geography to the history, the culture of Sudan is important to the story. And so I want to give students a little bit of background on the story itself, and I have linked a couple of book reviews that students can read through to kind of get them ready to read the book, and also a little bit of information about the author, Linda Sue Park. Linda Sue Park has her own author website that if students click on the link, will take them directly to the site if they click on continue to external site. And they'll be able to learn about our author, fun facts about her, reasons that she got into writing, and a little bit about what brought her to create the story A Long Walk to Water. There's also a video. Linda Sue Park did a TED Talk talking about what inspired her to write the story, and so students can watch our author explain a little bit more. After students learn about the novel and the author, they're ready for step 2, which is part of the Pathfinder that students will work through to refresh their memory on how to conduct research, the proper way to take notes, and how to cite. I do plan on walking this part of the Pathfinder with students to really go over these good researching skills so that they have them in place before they start the actual research for the Sudan paper. So if we click through, I give students the steps for writing the research paper. They're going to research, note take, write, and create a final copy with a works cited page. From there, I want to remind students that some of the sources in this presentation and in the research uses the North Dakota State Library database, and so they should use their school login information to log into those sites because our school does purchase access to those sites, and their school login will help them get into those sites that they need. So first up, looking for reliable information. I want students to be able to evaluate their sources and decide if it's trustworthy or not. So I have a link to a handout and a video that will kind of guide them through searching for and establishing if something is reliable. Online searching strategies. Check out these resources to help them best search for online information. I have a link to Google search tips for students, a YouTube video on effective search strategies, and a couple other that they can look through. How to avoid plagiarism. This is something that we're always working with students. How can they look at a source and jot down notes and information without plagiarizing? And so on the handout, continue to the external site, there's a nice handout on how to give credit to sources and not plagiarize. From there, we talk about a works cited page, and that students are going to be required to create a works cited page. The link takes them to an example so they can look through what their works cited page should look like. Library terms. This handout talks about some of those important keywords that librarians or teachers might use so that students are able to become familiar with those terms for researching. Note-taking strategies. Taking good notes to help you write your 6-paragraph paper. There's a couple videos here on how to take notes for researching, and then also a handout talking about the difference between quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. Those are all terms that students need to know in order to be able to take notes and be able to put them together to write their research paper. And then I invite students to get started looking through the information on Sudan and gathering the information they'll need to write their 6-paragraph paper. So step 3, now students will get into the research process. Students, if we look at the bottom here, the research notes packet, I included this as part of the Pathfinder. This is the packet of notes that students will be getting. This is a place for them to write down their notes. They'll be able to write the source that they're getting the notes from. There's a spot to either quote, paraphrase, summarize, page numbers. So I wanted to include that as a sample of what students will have in front of them as they're looking through these sources. So the paper objectives, what are students responsible for? Their paper should be able to show that they have a basic understanding of the geography of Sudan, identify the key features that make up the culture of Sudan, identify events through its history, and investigate the important events that have occurred recently in Sudan. I've included a copy of the grading rubric so students know what is expected of them in their final paper, and a breakdown of each category or each body paragraph and what it should entail. For instance, the history paragraph should talk about early settlers, rulers, religion, war and conflicts, government, and population. Again, a breakdown of the notes, and then an explanation of how they can take the URL from a website or online article and paste it into EasyBib, which is linked at the bottom of the slide, to generate their citation. I encourage them to copy and paste it right away into a Word document as they go to keep everything neat and organized. And then we get into the different sources. I have a general research sources tab. The Britannica and Explora Teens are both part of those, the North Dakota State Library database. Students will click on those. If they're searching at school, they may not need their student login information if they're on the school's Wi-Fi. If they're searching from home, they will need that login information. Geography sources. Here I've gathered up some geography sources that are a good source of information for students to look through. There's handouts, there are videos, World Atlas links to explore. Culture sources. These sources are all talking about a different type of or portion of culture, everything from food to languages. If students click on the links, it will take them, to that information. Sorry, backed up. The history sources, these are all sites I curated that have good information for students about the history of Sudan. And then current events, what's going on. The Lost Boys, of course, are an important part of the story. A Long Walk to Water. And so Gail had a nice article about that. Primary sources, again, a map of Sudan, the seal, the British Museum. I thought this was a very nice site for students to look through and see artifacts pertaining to Sudan. And then I encourage students to check out the print sources in the library using our Go Follets, and also resources that I have in my classroom, and Epic, which is our school subscribes to Epic, and there were a few reference sources on there as well. And then I encourage students to use their researching techniques that we have talked about to find 2 additional sources to take notes on, and remember to cite. So that is the Pathfinder for the Sudan research paper that I am going to use next year with my 6th grade student.